right, so very good evening, everybody. It is, oh my gosh, Thursday, the 18th, wow, of January. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you and congratulations to Caroline Gray for hosting last week. I listened to the recording, absolutely loved it. You are so you can tell your personality, you were you'd studied it, you were so switched on with it. You were talking about Brene, reflecting your TED Talks. You had it all itemized. You didn't skip a beat. Sometimes I'm a little bit random when I do it, but you were you could see the way you worked the way you worked that through that. It was very okay, which I loved. So very organized and it flowed. So thank you so much, Caroline, for doing that. You did a great job, seriously. And then it was just fascinating. I love that. It's like Big Brother, that's why it was so popular when it first came out, because you get to be a spy on the wall, right? You get to watch people's mannerisms and how they interact, and that had never been done before, and people were addicted to that, because when you look at somebody and they're kind of like, oh, what are you looking at, kind of thing, but you got to be the fly on the wall. So I feel like that when I listen to a recording of a host when I've not been present in the book club, I feel like that. Woo! I get to listen to all you guys interact and just feel the group. So yeah, thank you so much. That was great, and stepping out your comfort zone, and you did it. And like you said, you weren't ready last year, but life is all about timing. So I just want to say, oh my God, okay, I just blown away. I'm floating right now. I haven't come down to earth, and I don't think I will. But before I just touch on that, I just want to share something quickly with you. So, I our word of the year, yeah, that everybody has. And remember, you know, your job is to become the word. Okay, that's really, really important. And and again, screensaver, keep repeating it to yourself, really sort of define that. That is so important. It's not just a new year resolution that drifts away, midway through January, a bit like a gym membership, right? That's not what that word is about. And I just want to say how key you guys were to my word last year. You probably have no idea, but we did. So when you guys it was Thursday the 4th, so I was flying to Vancouver on the 5th, right? And you did a beautiful surprise with my hen party, and it just blew me. I didn't even see you all dressed up, and I couldn't quite. I was just it was just so mental. But this is how you were so intuitive to this, because one thing I had on my word of the year last year was worthiness. Okay, but look at this, covered in hearts. All right, so sometimes what you think you want from the universe is going to deliver other things around that. Okay, so I remember having the Statue of Liberty on my vision board, which was in $1 million. It was a banknote, USA. Okay, but it was about the million. I wanted to be in the $1 million club with Arbonne. I didn't see this, but Helga, my friend, visited, and she said, look at your vision board. And she said, you earned New York, that incentive trip, $1,000 to spend in Tiffany's, and you earned it twice, and there's a Statue of Liberty. And I was like, oh my God. So again, we put these things out there intentionally, but the real magic is you discover it along the way, but you have to have the intention to put it out there in the first place. You ask people, the whole thing, what do you want? And everybody knows what they don't want. They're happy to tell you, but they don't tell you what they do want. And that's your word of the year, okay? It's what you do want to create that intention. So it was worthiness. That's what I wanted. But all these hearts, I just love the whole frame. But the hearts, guess what you guys did in my box of goodies? Look how many hearts. And they're pink, and they're light, and they're dark pink. Look at that, okay? And that is on there. And that was my hen party that only I had with you guys on Zoom. And look at that. Again, signs are everywhere. Be open to receiving. Literally, I was just I need to tell you guys that, because that's magic. And it is about magic, and it's about flow, and it's about so yeah, the wedding. Thank you. And so the wedding thing, I just want to quickly say how Lorraine just said, I can't, only you, Stian gave you away. I phoned him 3 hours before I was getting married, and I said, hey, Stian, what are you doing at 5 o'clock? Are you free? Do you want to walk me down the aisle? He was like, oh, yeah, I'd love to. So I really there's a little book I think I'm going to touch on with you guys. I feel really pulled to this, and I gave this as a gift to Nikki today. The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. It's by Deepak Chopra. Tiny book. It's become my Bible, and it talks about success is so if you know the spiritual laws of success, real success is joy, flow, abundance, fun. That's, I feel like I'm living like that. It's and the thing is, success in modern times, we define it as a struggle, and it's restricted, and it's hard work, and it's resistance. That's not success. That's not how the spiritual laws work around success. Success is all about joy and flow and ease and fun. And that's where I've been for a long time now, I feel. So I really want to kind of zoom on that next time. So after this book, it's going to be a light book, but it's helping me no end, and I know it will help you too. So that's in the future. Now, quickly before we start, beautiful Donna Weiser. So I shared Donna Johnson's video today, bless her heart, while I was getting ready. So also Donna Weiser, I have a video to share for you guys. Everybody ordered a book. Here is your book. I brought all the books back. And not only that, she would have given you your name, written your name in the book, and done a personal message for each and every single one of you. Okay. So she's going to come on for an hour. So we had and look, and can I just say again, everything is divine timing. So it just says an expert guide at the top. This is what the forward says: an expert guide for anyone who wants to excel in any area of life. Shard Harmstetter, PhD, author and self-taught pioneer. Hello. Do you remember I did a recording of Donna Weiser and Donna Johnson at Dana Point in Dana Point in California, and they talked about Shard because it was the next book after Donna's book? This is power. This is why we do what we do. This is why we are here, like seriously. So yeah, let's get started on this book. The wedding was absolutely incredible. It wasn't a secret. It was very private. I didn't tell many people, but I told you guys. And I'm going to refer to that in this book, the reason why I told you guys. So because the way I feel about all of you guys, and how, yeah. And I'll talk about more in the book, but I just want to say I love you all. Thank you all. I know you. I wish I would have Zoomed you. I didn't realize I got the time totally wrong. It was 10 hours behind in Maui. I don't know, but it really doesn't matter. I could feel all of you with me there in kindness and spirit and soul and connection. So I'm so like grateful and thankful. So anyway, and right, let's get started on our Daring Greatly chapter 2. So scarcity. Looking inside our culture of never eat. No, that's not. No, that is that it? No, it is never enough. No, hold on. I've just been studying it. Oh, chapter 2. Yeah, I knew that was wrong. Debunking the vulnerability myths. All right. So what page is this? 33, 32. Okay, so the first little paragraph underneath the title, yes, we are totally exposed all the way to equals weakness. So I'm going to get the lovely Nikki to unmute and start us off on chapter 2, please.
This book is incredible. Sorry, chapter 2, the beginning.
Yeah, so just the little paragraph underneath the title.
Sorry, I'm just slightly ahead. I'm in a different place in my book.
Yeah, I started wrong. So it's yes, we are totally exposed all the way to equals weakness.
Chapter 2, debunking the vulnerability myths. Yes, we are totally exposed when we are vulnerable. Yes, we are in the torture chamber that we call uncertainty. And yes, we're taking a huge emotional risk when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. But there's no equation where taking risks, braving uncertainty, and opening ourselves up to emotional exposure equals weakness.
True. Okay. So, I feel like moving forward, how many people actually use the word vulnerable in the vocabulary? I don't. I know I don't. Rachel, you do. Okay. So have you done this for a while? How do you bring it up? Is it something you talk about? Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, so when I was 13, it was the last week of school, and I was headed home. I knew somebody was following me, so I went down a couple different areas, and I came up from my back door. Well, what I didn't know is that they had been stalking me. There was 3 men, and they raped me. And when I went through therapy and all of that, they taught me that being vulnerable was not being weak. And that's when I really figured out what the word vulnerable meant. And so I know it's okay to be vulnerable. It doesn't give you a good feeling, but yeah, it's been a part of my vocabulary since I was 13.
Okay, I'm shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, well, thank you for being so open and honest and sharing that. I feel like I've got to know you well, and then you bring that into it. I'm like, like, wow, 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 wow. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Gosh. Oof. Okay, Catherine, your hand's up, my lovely.
Yeah, I don't use the word often, but I often feel vulnerable. My youngest son has a medical condition, and not so much recently, but from the age of 3 to about 9, we were often in hospital, and you feel really vulnerable there because you're in the hands of the doctors. So it wasn't so much thinking it and thinking, oh my God, I'm really vulnerable, but feeling it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you have to trust in them, and that's when you felt really quite vulnerable.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Rachel, look at the chat. Everybody's commenting on you, my lovely. Feeling for you. I'm still in shock, by the way. Let me process that, but we love you. We love you with all our hearts. Okay. All right. So the next page, vulnerability is myth number 1 about vulnerability is weakness. So the first sentence, I'm just going to read this. So it says the perception that vulnerability is weakness is the most widely accepted myth about vulnerability and the most dangerous. Where do we think that myth comes from? Because I know before reading this book, I would have said it wasn't a strength, it was a weakness. So where has that come from? How is it that that is a myth? Like, I mean, are people the same as me? Were you like me? Anyone here who was like, being vulnerable is not strength. Like asking for help, I've had to learn it's asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And that's hard. That's been one of the hardest things for me to do. But has anybody felt that being vulnerable was being weak before reading this book? Lorraine. And Karen, and what is it about? So why have we felt that? Where does that come from? Was that our teachings from our parents? Was that where does that, Lorraine, what was it for you?
I think, and it doesn't actually explain it further in the book, because there are some people that were vulnerable because they were attention seeking. You know, we had that at school, you know, people would say, oh, they're vulnerable and they're always seeking attention, blah, 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 blah. And so maybe it stems back from that, you know, and, you know, they were always people, you know, probably some of them more negative, and, you know, using it not in the correct way. But I think this book shows us how to use vulnerability in the right way. Like Rachel, perfect example, you know, wasn't her fault, the situation that happened, you know, and you feel vulnerable, and then sharing it, you can feel vulnerable. That's why I said she was so brave to share that, and our hearts go out to you. But I think that's it, you know. I think for people that were attention seeking when we were younger, you know, they were kind of playing on the vulnerability, and we say, oh God, they're just weak.
True. I think you're right. Maybe the misuse of the word. It's funny. I've got this quote from somewhere, and it's stuck in my mind for a while now, and I've repeated it quite a lot recently. And it says that the pain wasn't your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. You know, and it is, right, because we have to do that. I'll never understand why something like that would ever happen to a person, Rachel. I don't know why. That I struggle with. You know, that should never have happened. So I don't understand. You know, we know that adversity, and you know, you learn and you get your strength, but that's just wrong. You know, I don't understand things to that extreme. But I do know that, again, the suffering isn't your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. So you've done a great job. Okay, so vulnerability, so perhaps it's been misused, from all this time, which has made it a myth. Okay, so and then the last sentence of that first paragraph, I'll just read that. It says, we've come to the point where rather than respecting and appreciating the courage and daring behind vulnerability, we let our fear and discomfort become judgment and criticism. And I think vulnerable means it's a place of exposure where actually you literally, everything's on the line. You're literally, like she said later in this chapter, being naked. You have nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nowhere to turn. You're just stood there and having to deal with that. And I should imagine vulnerability is probably more painful than it is joyful. Yeah, so we are scared of it. We don't want to have to deal with it if we don't have to, because who wants to face that? Really, who wants to stand naked in the middle of a room? Well, unless you have the body of a goddess, but and Lorraine is laughing her head off there. And I've seen Lorraine's picture above a bed. She is lying naked, and I've seen it all. Like, there it is. See those pictures? That's her naked. Yep, absolutely, totally vulnerable. Why not? Yeah, if you've got it, flaunt it. Yeah. Okay, so the next paragraph, vulnerability isn't good or bad, all the way to purpose and meaning to living. I would like Rachel for you to read this for us, please.
That's on page
Yeah, so it's the
33.
second paragraph. Yeah, it's just under the first paragraph, the second paragraph. Vulnerability isn't good or bad, and meaning to living.
Just making sure that I am reading the right one. And before I start, I just want to say, I've been in therapy since I was 14 years old. It takes, I wasn't able just to come out and tell people that happened to me until about 9 years ago. So it's taken a lot of healing. I just want to put that out there. It's not something that's easily coming out of my mouth, and it's definitely not, it's not first date conversation.
And also, can I just say, because when you say something of that extreme experience, it's also, how is the other person going to deal with that?
Yeah. And
right?
I do know that all of you can handle the brunt of that, because most of my family couldn't. So anyway, I'm gonna read. Vulnerability isn't bad or isn't good or bad. It's not what we call a dark emotion, nor is it always a light, positive experience. Vulnerability is the core of all emotions and feelings. To feel is to be vulnerable. To believe vulnerability is weakness is to believe that feeling is weakness. To foreclose on our emotional life out of a fear that the cost will be too high is to walk away from the very thing that gives purpose and meaning to living. Our rejection of vulnerability often stems from our associating it with dark emotions like fear and shame, grief, sadness, and disappointment. Emotions that we don't want to discuss, even when they profoundly affect the way we live, love, work, or even lead.
Thank you. Okay, so I really want to highlight the sentence when she says about, it's the second sentence of that second paragraph that Rachel's just read. Vulnerability is the core of all emotions and feelings. The core, like the core of an apple, like the seed. And we know that in every seed is the opportunity to grow a whole new forest. So when it says the core, of all emotion, of, you know, of all emotions and feelings. That really struck me, because I was like, vulnerability isn't really a word I use, I really associate with much. It's not really, you know, it's not in my vocabulary, but it is the core. I mean, that's it. It's the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. Depends how you look at it, right? Did anybody get a woof? That was really, that I've not had that for a while. It just literally jumped at me. I was like, that is so powerful, like, to know that that is our real truth. Yeah, anybody want to reflect on that? Did that hit anyone hard like me, or jump out at them? But if you think about it now, the core, that one word, and you know, we can really get to understand and get a grip of this word in this book, because you know, it means that we'll be better for, you know, to help others, helping ourselves first and helping others by really understanding why they show up like they show up, why they say the things, why the Chinese proverb says, ask a question and ask it again 7 times, and the 8th answer will be the truth. Unraveling the layers to get to the core, the root. Yeah? I mean, that's huge, right? Because most of us don't say what we feel, do we? Okay, so over the page, it talks about, so we seem to be doing a lot of the page 1, but don't get me wrong, we will, but it just seems to be this part, particularly for me, stood out. So, okay, so let's go to, when it goes in bold, on page 34, the second paragraph, she says, I define vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure, all the way down to your life without loving or being loved. Karen, this one's on you, please. Yeah, Karen with the orange top. I didn't know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I define vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. With that definition in mind, let's think about love. Waking up every day and loving someone who may or may not love us back, whose safety we cannot ensure, who may stay in our lives or may leave without a moment's notice, who may be loyal to the day they die or betray us tomorrow. That's vulnerability. Love is uncertain. It's incredibly risky. And loving someone leaves us emotionally exposed. Yes, it's scary, and yes, we're open to being hurt. But can you imagine your life without loving or being loved?
Thank you. That's it there. There's the real magic there, right? You know, I know Sean and I were a whirlwind. If you think we've only actually seen each other 4 times, you know, and it's only been, what, 7 months, not even that, 6.5. But the vulnerability in me, the love was there. Like, I'm not questioning that feeling. My mom said, oh, Fiona, you're not 16. You're right, I'm not 16. And I know that this was the real thing. And I don't want to, you know, and that's why I only told a small, you guys were very secluded, because I didn't need anyone else's validation or judgment or opinion. I wasn't seeking the outside. My core, my friends, were you. That's why I told you. And then we had that hen party, but hardly anyone knew, because that was my choice. Because again, like Rachel, you know, you exposed your, you know, that was what you've just shared with us, was, you know, incredibly powerful for us to receive that and to understand you came from a place because, you know, we could accept that and not judge you on that, you know. So again, that's why, yeah, it is such an incredible space, and who best to celebrate it with you guys. You know, it's like, you're my real friends. I really feel each and every one connected to all of you. And love is what, you know, if we are all liquid gold, like, you know, Robin Sharma says, you know, then guess what? We are love. Again, the core is vulnerability, and you can probably say love. That's part of who we are, to be loved and to love. Or why are we existing? You know, so we have to take the risk, but I'd rather take the risk than not. There isn't a risk for me. Yeah. Okay, so all right, so now she goes on to page 35 about so just quickly to go over this the first sentence here again, it starts to make sense that we dismiss vulnerability as weakness only when we realize that we've confused feeling with failing and emotions with liabilities. So feeling with failing. So if we feel something too deep, we're at risk of losing, right? And emotions with liabilities, if we become emotionally attached, it means that we aren't able to think with our head. But remember, your heart is developed in your body, in your mom's womb, before your head. So where is the truth? That head-heart coherence. But what are we doing with these feelings and these emotions? Because they rule us, don't they? You can make a decision about, you can feel one, you can't be both at the same time, happy or sad. It's one or the other. So I really, again, that jumped out at me. So she goes on to talk about vulnerability and so that the paragraph before she talks about it, she goes through each section. What really brings the definition of vulnerability up close and personal are the examples people shared when I asked them to finish the sentence stem. Vulnerability is. Now, you guys would have read it, and I know that you probably would have. I highlighted the ones that jumped out at me, okay? So for me, I'll share with you 4. So one was sharing an unpopular opinion. And I bet Nikki is terrified of that because she doesn't like to be exposed in public. That's one of your biggest fears, Nikki, which you shared with us, right? To be ridiculed in public. You shared that with us. And then one was used to be saying no, not anymore, but used to be. I had to work years over that. Admitting I'm afraid. I'm not good at that as a soldier. So those are some of mine. And actually, yeah, I would say. So I would like, please, to unmute the other Karen, Sally, Dottie, and Caroline. And I'd like you to share with us your 3 from there, or if you have your own, I don't mind. But what shows what vulnerability is to you. So in that order, please go first, Karen.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you've read the book, surely.
I did, but I didn't underline any.
Why not?
Perhaps
Are
it's
you
all
one of
of
these
them.
people that don't want
Perhaps
to
it's
touch
all
a
of
book?
them. I've started. No. Honestly, I've started. Look, I didn't like used to. I didn't.
Okay.
Not quite as many as you.
Well, okay, well, skip
Getting
read that. We'll come
promoted
back.
and not knowing if I'm going to succeed.
Okay, say that again, sorry.
Getting promoted and not knowing if I'm going to succeed.
So the fear of
One of
success
mine.
in a way.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for being vulnerable. Okay, who's next? Sally?
Hello. No, I didn't underline any out of that list either, because I didn't relate to any of them. I was actually quite shocked by some of the things that people put. I found it quite sad in a way that these things that people made people feel vulnerable. I felt sad for them, that not because I'm unaware that people come from that kind of place of fear and rejection from past experiences, but I was really quite surprised by a lot of the on the list.
Do you have
Took me
any
by
of your
surprise. Mine, I think I put in the chat last week, mine is like being misjudged.
Okay.
I don't that and usually money would be where my vulnerabilities lie. Like kind of unfairness. So,
Mhm.
if I've got to phone up and complain about being billed about something, if it doesn't go my way very quickly, then I'd start running out of oomph, because then I start feeling vulnerable if I feel not taken advantage of, but like I'm not being heard over that. Yeah, probably not being heard.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And on that note, I remember like when you start mentoring people and you get them to open up to you, and I'm not a psychiatrist in any way, shape or form, but as a leader, I feel I like to inspire and influence people, but people obviously will open up about, you know, what it is that's holding them back. And I would hear some things and I'd be like, I actually don't want to hear this because I can't undo what I've heard. And it really saddened my heart because I was hearing things that were so, I never thought about thinking about these things before. And I was shocked
Yeah.
that people thought about these things. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to know this because I don't want the
No.
influence on them, on me, to look at the world through this kind of strange negativity, scaremongering kind of, but that's why they were where they
Yeah.
were at. And I needed to connect with them to help them. But it was also like, oh, I'm not really comfortable with this. I don't know if I'm ready if I'm prepared
I just think
for this.
what people are missing out on as well. When I see things like initiating sex with my wife and my husband, if you can't initiate sex with them, who are you going to initiate sex with? You know what I mean? I'm a bit like, what?
Yeah.
But I know that I'm not naive. I know this happens, but it just takes my breath away. Stop laughing at me, Lorraine.
Yeah. Well, when you do it with strangers, it's easy because if they reject you, you'll never see them again. So you're like, oh, you're lost, not mine. Yeah. Yeah. Easy. Yeah. Olden days talk, that is,
Do you
obviously.
know what though? You're spot on, aren't you? That you are correct. That is spot on. If you went and asked those people that put that, the rejection is so much. They're so much more vulnerable with these people that are important to
And I
them.
think what happens when you've maybe been married for a long time, you're never going to get that first kiss feeling again. But what you can do is sporadic things. You can do things, oh, fuck it, let's do this or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? You need to keep that spark alive because then it starts to be overthought again. And, you know, like, yeah. And then it's like when you start to, if it's in your head, it's dead, basically. You know, that's gone. You know, you will never get that first kiss back again, but you're going to get many other things along the way. But you can make that happen, you know. Rachel, your hand is up.
Yeah, the one about waiting for the biopsy.
Lorraine, you
Firsthand,
put
I
that in the
can
chat
tell
too.
you. Yeah, I can understand being vulnerable because you're scared to death. You don't know if you need to jump into the fight, you know, and get geared up for that, or if you can relax. And that feeling is very vulnerable. I will say that. But I am the reason why my husband could not clear the woods around his house. So, because if I felt happy, it was going to happen. And so I don't understand the whole not being able to initiate stuff. But yeah, you got to be able to just be sporadic.
Exactly. Thank you. Who is next on the list there, please? Dottie, you're up next.
Yeah, hello. I was like, oh, quite a lot, but asking for help, I think that's my biggest one because I'm always, yeah, I do it myself. And then last year when I fell down from stairs, twisted my ankle, I was unable to drive. And like my neighbor 2 doors away, she's got a son in the same school as Dominic. She was like, don't worry, we're going that way. We will take Dom anyway. Just message me in the morning. And I grabbed the phone and I couldn't message. I was like, how bad is that? I just wanted to ask for help. And I was struggling to message her, please, can you take Dom? And I realized, oh my goodness, I cannot even, and she already offered it. So it was a biggie for me.
So see how out of balance you are as a social worker, where you are so pleased to help others, but you don't get the help yourself. Isn't that interesting how you can give and not receive? And again, that's real work for you to do in that area. Yeah.
And I was like, I can message her, yeah, pick him up, or he's coming. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know. Connected to work, so maybe it's like calling a friend whose child just died. So it's not a friend, but again, because of my work, who I work with, I treat them, I shouldn't maybe treat them like, you know, friends, but then I'm feeling what they're feeling. So I had a case, 2 weeks ago, I shared it as well, when their child passed away, and I was like going to ring the mom and the dad. I was as well like, oh my God, what am I going to say? How do I say? You know, again, it's like very big one. And I would say the falling in love, it's like the connection and first day after divorce, because I was divorced, and then it was like, that's it, I'm not having anybody else. And then you're like ready, you want it. So it's like from one end to another. And then I've met Lucas and I said, you don't expect anything because I'm just going through the divorce. Nothing's gonna happen. It's a no. but then let's go out. You know, it was again that strange when you like, yes, no, nothing gonna be, and then few weeks we were in love. So it's really, really
Well, you
strange.
did go choose the word love last year, my lovely. So,
Yeah.
you know, no surprises
And
there.
over the first 2 weeks, it still everywhere comes love. I'm pouring my Gigi drink into the cup and it's all coming like in the heart. I was like, why is this still in love? But then this week I started to sing Believe. So I was like, oh, maybe I needed like a transitional period.
Well, it's not going to be such like a, you know, like an off on light switch. It's more like a dimmer, like awareness. So when you do change your word over, because you've become that word for the year 2023, you can't really switch it off like that. But what you can do is like sort of dim it down and then start to dim and then start the awareness and dim brightly, more and more brightly, the new word. And then that will kind of come into play. But
and I've had like an old CD, and Dom was asking, oh, mommy, can we have some CDs in the car? I was like, oh yeah, I think I've got some old CDs. And I look, and the CD title was Believe. I was like, dang.
Yes, yes. Sing hallelujah. Love it. Who was next? Caroline, was it? Yes, go ahead, Caroline.
Yes, it was me. Hello, everyone. Yeah, like Dottie, I think my biggest one is asking for help. So last year, I actually found out that I need to have a hip replacement, would you believe, at the grand old age of 48. And I was actually supposed to be having it a week on Monday. And I feel massively vulnerable in this area because I associate being strong physically, you know, mentally, and having something like that, having a surgery, being out of action, and also with losing my person, which was my mum, who was always my support. So, you know, have to ask people for help is a big thing for me. And like Dottie was saying, not being able to drive, and that also follows on to admitting I'm afraid. You know, I'm actually quite fearful about having it. I've had surgeries in the past, don't get me wrong. So I don't think it's actually the surgery itself, but I just think as you get older, I just don't want it. But I know it will improve my life. So yeah, I'm massively vulnerable in this area. Anything that affects me physically, because I want to be strong.
Well, because you are strong.
Yeah. I feel weak. It's like, I suppose, a bird with a broken wing or something. You know, you just feel very vulnerable.
It's like it's impeding on your self-identity as well as being a strong woman. Yeah, I totally get that. I'm the same as you.
It almost makes me feel embarrassed as well, because it makes me feel like, is it something that I've done? I associate having joint replacements as being very old. You know, this is what old people have, not young. So to find out, I was shocked. You know.
So you haven't had it done yet, though, have you?
No, it's supposed to be a week on Monday, but I just didn't feel ready mentally. So I did it in March.
Okay, well, you did get, Lorraine did say she's got a titanium hip. So if you want advice, speak to Lorraine. You know, Lorraine, anything anybody wants, Lorraine probably has done it, has got it. And so she is our oracle in the group. Sally, your hand is up.
Just to add a bit more to the oracle and reassure Caroline, the reason we think hip replacements and things are for old people is because in the old days they would make you wait as long as possible, because they didn't want to, because they don't last forever, and the NHS would only do it once. But nowadays they do it much sooner, because they understand the debilitating conditions that can arise from needing one. So they are doing them much younger, and that's a really good thing. And they accept the fact that in 10 years' time, you might need it redoing, depending on what kind of hip replacement they do and what they use, blah, blah, blah. But that's why we associate it with old people, is because they used to put it off as long as possible. And people were literally crippled in pain and do all sorts of damage to good parts of their body, supporting a bad hip. And thank goodness they've seen reason and they do them much quicker, and we're very lucky that they do. But that's really why it's not really because old people have hip replacements.
That's really interesting. Lorraine, so, I have a bit of question with the titanium hip. Do you, when you go through the x-ray at the airport, do you get beeped up? Do you have to get stopped and searched every time?
Oh yes, I'm always being frisked.
Well, see, Caroline, there's a benefit there, right there, my lovely.
I tell you what was funny. I had it down to a T traveling, because Ian will not, if I'm traveling with him, he hates it getting stopped. So I would not have a fancy belt on or jewelry on. I would and I would take everything off. So I zipped through. In fact, once I took my skirt off and put it on the conveyor belt, I did have kind of thick winter tights on, but it had lots of buckles, and it just happened I had to wear that for where I was going. So I just put it on the conveyor belt so I wasn't getting stopped. And now, because I'm going to beep, I'm going to be frisked, I wear everything. And they'll say, it's your earrings, it's your necklace. And I go, no, it's my titanium hip replacement. Frisk me.
That's amazing. It's amazing that you don't get to say that before you walk through, because I bet there's a lot of people who have got, you know, like bits and bobs, and you know, nobody asks. It's just until you go through, then it's like, oh, you know what, we need to check you out, kind of thing. Interesting. Okay, I did wonder. Right. Okay, so moving on then from the list. She said, you know, oh my goodness. So at the end of that list on page 37, do these sound like weaknesses? Yeah, does showing up to be with someone in deep struggle sound like a weakness? You know, is accepting accountability weak? So is stepping up to the plate after striking out a sign of weakness? No, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Now that, I love that. So if this is the core, right, of these, you know, she talked about the feelings and emotions, vulnerability sounds like truth, okay, and the feelings, and the emotions, and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness. Amen to that. Amen. How many of us have done bold, courageous things and it's blown up in our face, but yet, you know what, we had to do it because it was who we were, right? Or we were maybe stupid, but we still had to do it because we had to do it. Yeah. Okay, and then she asks basically about how does vulnerability feel. So there's now a long list about how it feels. This was interesting. Sally, were you shocked at this list as well, or did you think this was more like kind of like you didn't feel so bad about this list about people?
No, this one was much more relatable.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was really good, actually. It was really good descriptions.
Yeah. Now, obviously, she's a researcher, so she, you know, I would love to know how many people like she's, you know, asked on her research for this. But so yeah, so let's have people to unmute. Mintu, Catherine, Leslie, and who else? Blah, blah, blah. Who have I not? Emma. You four, please. And I would like to hear 2 or 3 of how does it feel when it happens, whether it's on the list or 1 or 2 of your own. Mintu, in that order. Mintu, you first, please.
Probably this just jumps out. I mean, I haven't reread. I read this a while ago and I didn't highlight this, so I've kind of forgotten a bit.
You
But this
actually meant to
jumps
have
out
read it for
straight
this
away.
week, so you're prepared, my lovely. You meant to have read it for this week, so you're prepared when I ask you this question.
Yes, I went.
Just
for,
highlighting.
Anyway, what jumps out is this a lump in my throat and not in my chest. So that's very fucking, yeah. I felt
Okay.
that many times.
And is that
Yeah,
why?
that's it.
So you feel the physical when you get that state of vulnerability? It's the physical ailment that hits you. Because if you look at that,
yes, but
she had the sweaty palms. So it was, so for you, it's more of a physical than emotional with the vulnerability.
no, there'll be emotional as well. Yeah. It's not, but that is a physical feeling that I know that I have had many times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
When I read it, I can straight away relate to it.
All right.
But yeah, also, yes, a terrifying point on a roller coaster, which is very exciting as well. It's like the best part, but quite scary as well. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Catherine, you're next.
So for me, I guess it's more the feeling, like I mentioned earlier, scary and exciting, terrifying and hopeful. And then the one, panic, anxiety, fear and hysteria, followed by freedom, pride and amazement, and a little more panic. And then the letting go of control. But to me, I relate that to 2 main features in my part of my life. Like I say, when Sam had been in hospital a lot, but also in about 18 months ago, putting my mum into a care home. And you had all of those basically came into play.
Wow, that's a lot one time.
Well, Sam's been in and out of hospital, but
No,
with
but as in
mum,
your
yeah, but
feelings.
with mum, it's
Yeah, but
really difficult because she's got Alzheimer's, so she needed to be somewhere safe, and it's scary to have her at home, but kind of then terrifying to put her into a care home because you know what I mean. You're taking her out of her environment. Also, you've got to admit to letting go of control because she needed that extra help.
But you
So
know, you
quite
mentioned
a lot of emotions that went on when we were putting her in a care home.
Okay, I just want to clarify. You mentioned a lot of emotions at once. Are you doing this all at one time? Is this all hitting you at like like a bunch of flowers, each flower being one of those emotions, or are you finding you're going like from one to the other to the other to the other to the other? You're like hopscotching it.
Yeah, it's difficult. Sometimes it can come all at once, but other times it is like hot, the jumping. It's
Wow.
really weird.
That's a lot to take on at once.
Yeah.
I don't have enough space in my brain for that. Wow.
What do I?
And then okay, so I have psoriasis, which obviously is a stress thing that I've lovely hereditary thing. Do you have any aversions, and what happens like with all that happening? Do you then get sick? Do you get tired? Do you get headaches? What?
I think I go back to the thing of one of the books, Can I Change It? No, move on.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And that's from personal development.
Brilliant.
When things like that happen, kind of take a step back, a few deep breaths, whatever. Can I change it? No, move on. And then a lot of the time as well, if I'm feeling a bit stressed, I'll go and do exercise or go for a run or something.
Great.
My
Change
head.
your state. Okay, Tony Robbins, change your state. That's great. Do you take your squander, the inner calm? Is that a daily thing?
Say again?
Do you take the inner calm, Alwan squander? Do you take
No,
that as well?
I don't. I've got some in the cupboard, but it's out of date. But I really should take it, shouldn't I?
It would help.
Yeah.
Because life is always gonna hit you, isn't it? So it just gives you that, it takes the edge off, I would say. I love it. I put in my protein shake every day.
Lavender spray is good as well.
Okay.
If I've got a busy brain at night time, lavender spray on the pulse points really helps.
Thank you. Okay. Leslie, you're next.
Me, it feels free. I feel
We can't hear you, babe.
oh, okay, sorry, I'll take this off. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, so for me it was freeing. It's just when I'm vulnerable, but I do it anyway, it's that fear. It's a bit like with my hair in the alopecia in some ways, in that, when I decided that I'd be more open about it, I felt, because that used to be a vulnerability for me and I felt really vulnerable. But now when anybody asks me about it or asks me the question, oh, do you wear a wig or what, I'm fine. Like, I don't have any fear of it anymore. And it feels free to be able to talk about it and not feel that dread and that oh God, I've got to talk about this. I used to hate standing up because I thought people were going to look at me and ask questions and they'd know. Now I'm like, yeah, whatever. And it is through a lot of what we've all done together that I feel that way, and not just with the alopecia, but in every sense of my being. I walked away from a job, and you'd think I would have been scared, and there was a little bit in my belly where I felt vulnerable, like I've gone from nearly 40 grand a year to nothing. And I was just like, I felt free. I felt like it's like taking off a straitjacket, and that's how it felt. It felt like somebody had unlocked the cage and let me out.
Nice.
I know I'm vulnerable, but I don't let it hold me back anymore. Like, I love that feeling I know this is going to be scary, but I've got this. I have got this. It's okay to feel nervous. I went for a health check. It's just after Christmas. I've had a bad injury. I've not been able to exercise. I was like, oh my God, what's coming back? What am I going to get back? I got it all back. Everything is good. A few ambers, but very minor ambers. Everything's red. Right,
Good.
So, and I knew everything was going to be okay, but there was that small part of me going, oh no, getting on the scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant.
so-
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome, Leslie. Thank you. Emma, on you. Let's hope Lottie behaves this week after last week when she was being murdered to death.
You can't make it up, can you?
Well,
Bloody
they say
kids.
don't work with kids or animals. So
I know. Well, I've just got the dog in the kitchen now, but they still keep coming in and out. I like the one where it says when you're halfway across a tightrope and moving forward and going back are both just as scary, because you know you've kind of pushed yourself out there and then you kind of panic and think, shit, what am I doing? But you can't go back. You've just got to go forwards, and it's just scary either way. So I definitely like that one. Sweaty palms and racing heart. Absolutely. Even just coming on talking, I can feel my palms going. Yeah, and this is quite a safe space.
but that's
And,
more to do with Lottie being, you know, like
well,
screaming
there's
in the
partly that,
background.
is it? It
Yeah.
is partly that, yeah. But I always remember when I was working at Ragdoll and we'd have supervisor meetings and we'd go around the room and see who had things to say. I'd be there and I'd really want to speak, but I'd be so yeah, definitely that one. Being all in. And probably the biggest one, letting go of control.
Yes, well, I saw your post where you have done that.
Yeah. And my word of the year is trust this year.
Same as Nikki's.
So that's a big one, just to after conversations we've had as well, letting go of things that you can't control.
Brilliant. Good job. Just quickly, the 2 pots, I've never heard about that before with the child. The power.
So two buckets, the power bucket and the control bucket. So if they feel like they've got enough control over, no, it wasn't control, attention and control.
Yeah.
So as long as if they're not filled, and you can put that to adults as well, if we don't have our attention, the enough attention that we need, they'll do whatever they need to do to get that attention. And if they don't have the control, so you know, that's why letting them have the stupid decisions like what color plate or what color bowl, because they feel like they've got a certain amount of control, then you'll be able to have more control over the other things like hold my hand walking down the road, that sort of thing. So that's the theory behind it.
Interesting. Thank you. I like that. Okay, so who here, put your hand up if you talked on stage. She goes on to talk about TED Talks. Okay, who here has not talked on stage? Rachel. Okay, would you like to talk on stage, Rachel? No. Okay. Apparently Rita Davenport said she would say it's the scariest thing to do after burning alive, or the people would rather burn alive than talk on stage. Henna, are you clapping? Have you got your hand up? Do you want to say something?
I was just going to say I've never spoken on the stage. I'm just trying to control a toddler and do this at the same time.
Bless you. Okay. So you don't want to talk, no?
No, I can do now. I've just kicked him out. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So reading this has been one of the best books I've read so far, because I've worked with vulnerable children all the time, and we always look at it not as a negative thing, but always something like they need to be protected at all time because they aren't capable of doing it themselves. And I think just reading this is opened my eyes a little bit. That's not what it is. It's us that we need to change how we view their vulnerability rather than thinking, oh, they need protection all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Rather than quash it. Yeah.
And the one thing that I really need to do in my life is be like Dottie, because I don't accept help from anyone. Even if I need it, I always say, no, it's fine, I'll do it myself. And at times it gets very, very difficult. And I just need to learn to just speak up and say, no, actually, I could do with a bit of help here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think most of us independent women, and I think I should imagine, I think I'm speaking for most of us in this book club, are like that. Aren't we, ladies? That's probably why we're all in this book club in a safe space, because we find it difficult to do it with others. But if we have the right people, choosing the right people, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. I know we're coming up to the end, but I want to go on to that. So thank you for sharing, Hannah. That was really insightful. So page 47, the bottom paragraph, we love seeing raw truth all the way to the bottom of the page. I don't want to be vulnerable. I would like to get, please, let's get Catherine to read that for us.
Sorry, what page?
41. Bottom paragraph. We love seeing raw truth all the way to want to be vulnerable.
Yep. We love seeing raw truth and openness in other people, but we're afraid to let them see it in us. We're afraid that our truth isn't enough. That's what we have to offer. What we have to offer isn't enough without the bells and whistles, without editing and impressing. I was afraid to walk on that stage and show the audience my kitchen table self. Those people were too important, too successful, too famous. My kitchen table self is too messy, too imperfect, too unpredictable. It's the crux of the struggle. I want to experience your vulnerability. I don't want to be vulnerable.
Thank you. Okay, page 43. Myth 2, I don't do vulnerability. The little thing about the children, the little paragraph there at the top, when we were children, to be alive is to be vulnerable. I would like, Emma, can you unmute and read that for us, please?
When we were children, we used to think that when we were grown up, we would no longer be vulnerable. But to be grown up is to accept vulnerability. To be alive is to be vulnerable.
Thank you. So didn't you think that your mom and dad knew all the answers? You look at adults, you think they've got the shit together, right? And then you become an adult and you're like, I'm still a child at heart. Really? Okay, page 45. So this is really important. And this is why this group works so well. And I know I've frozen. Can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay, page 45. And it's towards the bottom. So the second last paragraph, that's the paragraph, it's the sentences in which starts, vulnerability is based on mutuality and requires, so it's not that I want, but it's that third sentence where it says, vulnerability is about sharing our feelings and our experiences with people who have earned the right to hear them. Now, that's why I shared getting married with you guys and not really anyone else apart from my family, because you earned the right to hear them, because you were the right people. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't need other people's judgment. I didn't need other people's validation. I didn't need their opinion. Does that make sense? So again, being vulnerable is being brave and courageous, as we know, but in what arena, when she talks about the man in the arena, what arena do you stand in the middle and share that with? Sometimes we're going to have to go and do it in the world, like Arbonne, reaching out to people about our products, reaching out about our business. We are putting ourselves up for failure. We're setting ourselves up to be judged. I get that. And that's why most people can't do it or are scared, because they don't want to. Yeah, because the vulnerability is what stops them. They're looking at it from the wrong angle. But also, when you're doing things that mean something to you, that you don't have to, like for me, obviously getting married, I chose who I wanted to share that with, and it had to be the people who I knew would be on my would be able to cheer the magic with me. I also had a few good friends who also told me about a prenup and la. And I knew they were telling me from love, not the place of judgment, but a place of looking out for me too. And I appreciate that too. Does that make sense? So be careful when you be vulnerable, because, we sometimes we don't have a choice, but when we do, who do you choose to be vulnerable with? And I think that's important moving forward for all of us, because I feel I kind of want to take on the word and the world, that I can say it's a core thing, it's strength, it's not weakness. But actually, if I go stomping into an arena full of people, idiots, guess what? I'm going to blow myself up. I'm going to stand on a landmine. We used to have a running route in the army in Bosnia. They had to every morning. We had to go through the path, the running route, and make sure there was no landmines that we stood on. Like, that's true. That's what we had to do, right? So you know what? If we stand on a landmine, it's because we haven't done the work to clear the landmine, the potential disaster of sharing our heart and exposing ourselves to the people who are going to criticize. And unfortunately, family who are not by choice tend to be the ones who tend to do it a little bit more. But that's because they love you, or is it? Not that they don't love you, but you know, they're coming from their landscape, their map of the world, thinking they have your best interests at heart. But are we calling conditional or unconditional love? That's my question with family sometimes. But yeah, we're almost done. Anybody want to give some last words, takeaways from this week's book club, or what I've just talked about there about who are you vulnerable with? Like, if you get a choice, have you thought about it? Do we do that consciously? Are we aware that, what, actually, I know if I tell this person, they're going to react. Sometimes you have to, but sometimes you don't. Anybody want to add into that quickly before we go? Okay, go ahead, Karen.
I got married after knowing my husband for 6 months, and we're still together 23 years later.
Yes! Thank you for being the evidence and being the proof. I love you. Thank you, Karen. That's awesome. See, love conquers all on my ring. Love conquers all. Yeah, doesn't it just? Anybody else? Perfect. Anyone else want to add to that? No. Everyone's like, we're good, we're done. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Love you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Believe and trust and believe. I zoomed on I saw people put love conquers all, Nikki, and she saw it on the ring. Thank you all. We'll see you next week. Love you all. Mwah. Take care, everyone. Bye.